Let's continue with the topic. We were discussing why did the movement, non-cooperation movement, slow down in towns? There were varied reasons behind it. We will discuss the two prime reasons. The two prime reasons, khadi cloth, and second, lack of alternative institutes. Children, khadi, that hand spun khadi, it was very expensive as compared to the mill made cloth. For some time, Indians used khadi, but all could not continue using khadi because it was so expensive. So many had to return to mill made cloth, which was coming to India from Britain, Manchester. Then, second, lack of alternative institutes. You know, students had boycotted schools, teachers had resigned, lawyers had stopped going to the law courts. But where were the Indian institutes, native institutes? There were no Indian run schools, there were no Indian run courts, nothing. So gradually, the students started going back to the schools, teachers joined the schools back, lawyers started going to the courts. And this is how the movement, it ultimately slowed down. It gradually slowed down. So here we have discussed how did the movement unfold in towns. Now we will switch over to the second part of it. How did it unfold in villages in the countryside? Page 58. Now our question is rebellion in the countryside, that is the villages. Children, all of you know that this movement was to unfold in three stages: surrender the titles, then boycott the foreign cloth, schools, colleges, etc., and ultimately civil disobedience movement. So this is how it should have developed in villages also. But now we will discuss how did the movement unfold in villages and why did it unfold in this way, and what were the villagers thinking about Swaraj. For this, first we'll have to understand the ground position, the ground condition. We have to understand what was the condition of the villagers, especially the peasants. In your book, they have mentioned Awadh. So basically, this is what was happening all over in India in the countryside. Now, we'll discuss the question, what was the condition of the peasants in India? Children, landlords, or they were called talukdars, demanded very high rent and other cesses, that is taxes, from the peasants. You know, the peasants, they did not have their own land. They had taken land on lease and on rent from the landlords, talukdars, and they had to pay revenue. Fine. So that revenue was very high. And another thing was that many peasants had to do begar. What is begar? Begar means work without payment. There were many land, landless workers whose forefathers had taken, their ancestors had taken loan from the zamindars, from the talukdars. They were not able to pay it, so they were doing begar for them. So second was the peasants had to do begar. And then as tenants, they had no security of tenure and they were regularly evicted. So, and they had no right over the leased land. So, this was the condition of the peasants. So, you can well imagine what they were expecting, what they would demand, what they would like to happen. Yes, you're right. Now, we will discuss what were the demands of the peasants during non-cooperation movement. See, they had to pay high revenue, so they were and they were demanding reduction of revenue. Then they demanded abolition of begar, and then they thought they will social boycott. They will the social boycott of whom? Oppressive landlords, the talukdars. Now, who were the talukdars and landlords? Maximum were Indians. So, what kind of a tussle has started here? The Indian peasants versus Indian talukdars. Now, how did the movement unfold. It should have unfolded in the same way, surrender the titles, etc., etc. Now let's see what happened in villages. First of all, you know the demands of the peasants. Now, what did the panchayats do? They organized Nai Dhobi Bandh. Nai is a barber and Dhobi is the washerman. They decided that they will socially boycott the landlords, the talukdars. They will not provide them with the services of the Nai and Dhobi. Fine, and this was the way of social boycott. Not only this, houses of talukdars and merchants were attacked. Then bazaars were looted, granaries, the grain hoards were taken. Now, what did the villagers understand from Swaraj? Actually, their condition was such that they understood that if Swaraj will come, there will be reduction of revenue, abolition of begar, and they opted the way social boycott of oppressive landlords. But this is not what Congress and Mahatma Gandhi had anticipated. For them, Swaraj was something different. And hence, Congress was not very happy with the development. Now, once again, what do we understand? The peasants, for them, meaning of Swaraj was not absolutely clear and they interpreted it in their own way. They turned violent and they did not behave like true satyagrahis. Over here, I also would like to discuss the role played by Baba Ramchandra and then Jawaharlal Nehru. Baba Ramchandra, he was a sannyasi. Then he had earlier been to Fiji as an indentured laborer and he led the movement in Awadh. And villagers, the peasants, they followed him. Now, Jawaharlal Nehru during non-cooperation movement. In June 1920, Nehru started visiting villages all around Awadh. He talked to villagers and he tried to understand what their problems are, what their grievances are. And then he set up Oath Kisan Sabhas in village. The motive behind this was when non-cooperation movement would start, then they would integrate these people of Oath Kisan Sabhas into non-cooperation movement and will turn non-cooperation movement into a real mass movement. So under the able guidance of leadership of Nehru, by October 300 Oath Kisan Sabhas were formed in Awadh. And this was done to, as I told you, integrate the Awadh peasants' struggle into the broader and the wider struggle of non-cooperation movement. And Nehru, he was helped by Baba Ramchandra and many others. Children, this is your work for today. And we'd like to give you 2 copy questions that you have to write in your copies. And the copy questions are, first, how was non-cooperation movement to become a successful mass movement? Means how it was to unfold, and you have to write 3 points: surrender of the titles, boycott, and civil disobedience movement. This is for 3 marks. And now here is a 5-mark question for you. How did non-cooperation movement unfold in villages? You have to write everything in it. You will write about the condition of the workers. You will write how they started looting granaries, how they attacked talukdars, and how Congress was not happy with this incidents. Okay, good. Thank you.